You're listening to Restaurants Reinvented, a podcast for restaurant brands who want to put growth back on the menu. In each episode, Jen Kern, the CMO of Q, highlights innovators and change agents in the restaurant industry and uncovers how leading brands are modernizing their operations to drive efficiency and meet the evolving demands of guests. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Restaurants Reinvented. This is Jen Kern. I'm the hostess here of the show. And today I am joined by a very exciting guest, and his name is Michael Chachula. Hello, Michael. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Appreciate
thanks so
it.
much for joining. I'm really thrilled about having you on. So this is actually the third installment of what I'm calling our CTO/CIO Trailblazer series. And have been on the hunt for really forward-looking heads of technology and information and data in our space, because I think we all need to be talking about these topics of how do we modernize our tech stack and where are we going from here and what does the future look like? And it's a group effort, as we know.
Oh, yeah.
So I've had the pleasure of meeting you, but my audience hasn't met. So why don't you go ahead and give us a quick background of your bio and how you found your way over to Fat Brands this year?
Sure. Well, I've been in technology or business or somewhat in the publicly traded segment on both sides, right? Both business, both technology, which I think in my career has just helped me get a well-rounded perspective of not doing technology for technology's sake, but understanding that although folks might look at ROI, look through the lens of value, and try to understand, hey, some things we might not think personally are of value just because of our, my own upbringing and how I was raised. And, computers came into play when I was still young, but not a child, not a baby. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I wasn't used to them. And in high school is when they really became, in college, they became, kind of the forefront. So, I look at it through the lens of the kids today, the next consumer. And throughout my career, I've been in finance, I've been in manufacturing, I've been in pharma, I've been just around, and any place that I can make a difference is where I've been. So I grew up in Chicago, so born and raised. You could probably hear the Chicago accent every once in a while. When I start talking like, hey, how you doing? Then you hear it. I'm like, the Bears, it comes out. You can't help it. But raised in Chicago, went to DePaul, Northwestern, and then went to New Jersey for a while working for Novartis, and then ended up on the West Coast working in technology, and now with Fat Brands as the first Fat Brands CIO over there. So that's kind of my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's awesome. Well, it's always interesting when you're the first at something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think the impetus was for Fat Brands being, obviously a very growing multi-franchisee brand? What was the impetus for hiring the first CIO ever?
Yeah, well, I think, luckily the senior leadership, had the foresight and the wherewithal to start to understand that as you start bringing together this Technicolor dream code, if you will, of all these different brands with different vendors and technologies and platforms and customer bases and data and all those things, as well as, when you get onto the stage of being a publicly traded company and you start looking at market caps and things of this nature, as your company grows and expands, you start hitting certain tiers of regulation as you go through that. And regulation is not just on the financial side, it's also on the technology side. IT general controls, who has access to what? Since it's publicly traded, there's a lot of data, there's security, there's investors need to be, told exactly what's happening and all those things that you could imagine. So they had the wherewithal to say, hey, listen, we're getting to the point now where we probably need to bring someone in who has experience in this space. And myself, coming from the finance world, that's heavy regulated from a SOX and perspective and so many more areas, both technically and financially, but as well as coming from IHOP, Applebee's, Dine Brands, I've seen and experienced and lived through a lot of the things that they're just now stepping onto the diving board, right? And about to go headlong into that pool. And the great news is we're making great strides and getting to where we need to be. And not only does Fat Brands and the investors benefit from that, but so does the customer, right? At the end of the day, a lot of the things that we're doing is creating a strong foundation that allows us to build some really cool and neat forward-looking technologies.
Right. And so where are you focused today? I mean, I can only imagine how overwhelming and big your world is with over 15 I think you have 17 total brands.
17
international,
brands.
and
Mhm.
you're owning both the systems side of things for the technology systems and upgrades, as well as the data and security and information. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about, the standard, or I would say not standard, but if you think, at least in my experience, the best practice is looking at it through the lens, in restaurant anyway, through the lens of a few different pillars. One is in-restaurant technology, everything within the restaurant itself. The other is data. So anything that has to do with data, whether it's in corporate or whether it's in the customer side. Then you have security, of course, which is on everyone's front of mind, just due to many of the things that have happened, today being election day, right?
Mhm.
And you heard
Yeah.
the Russian oligarch come out and say, "Oh, I'm going to meddle in this one as well." I mean, just security
Yeah.
becomes a big deal. So in restaurant, data, security. Then you have digital, which stands on its own. That in itself is a very large area that really, where the customer tends to interact quite a bit. Even when they go in restaurants, sometimes they start on Google. Where are they located? They might not order through the app, but they have that experience of, they have good reviews? Do they have, location near me? Is that location still open? Is it north, south, or, on the directions, all that type of stuff. So there's digital. And then lastly is more of the tech ops, which is more internal controls that have to do with, running the organization. And that's a pretty standard IT setup across the board in most companies that you'll see. But the reality is getting that balance of what goes where, especially when you have 17 brands, is kind of the trick. That's the magic sauce behind the curtain of Oz, right? Is getting that balance right of, if you had another dollar to spend, where would you put it in that framework, to make things happen?
And so can you share with us, where are you focused? Where are you putting that investment in across these
Yeah,
five
sure.
areas?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think, first of all, if you look at COVID, I think COVID has really caused a significant change in the way that people consume, so I talk a lot if I go out and speak with folks, or I'm talking to franchisees, or I'm talking to internal folks. I have the conversation around, even the people in my circle that I talk to, 60%, let's call it, will say, I'm not going back to pre-COVID purchasing habits. I just don't trust even stores have the capability, not just restaurants, but even grocery stores, even, computer stores, whatever store you name to go into is going to have the capability of keeping me safe and keeping me clean. Now, we do a very great job of keeping our restaurants very, very clean, so that's not an issue for us. But at the same time, in the mind of the consumer, there's always now that chance of something happening. So you're seeing a shift that happened during COVID where we went all online. Almost every restaurant had to go online. So you definitely see significant growth in online. Well, when you see that growth in online, you have the opportunity to glean a significant amount of data from the customer. And the customer now is willing to give that data. Whereas in the past, our generation and our parents' generation were more around, oh, you're not getting my info. We're not giving that info up. Whereas today, and especially into the millennial and beyond, they're more around, I want instant satisfaction. I want service. Here's my information. Get it to me. You should know who I am already. If you don't know who I am, then that's your problem, right? And they move on. So really focusing on that customer experience, customer data, the idiosyncrasies of their purchasing habits. Again, for example, you should know I'm a vegan or a vegetarian. I've never ordered meat before. Why are you sending me, hamburger ads? They tend to be put off by that. Whereas we should be sending them plant-based ads and salad ads and all those things, because again, the playing field, because of COVID, has gotten level. So what I mean by that is that restaurants are seeing much more folks leaving their business because the differentiation is more around, hey, listen, I want an experience change. It's not always just around, I want that flavor anymore. It's more around who's giving me the best experience. And yes, flavor plays a role and the food plays a role in that value proposition. But now folks are seriously looking at how they get the food. Is it easy? Is it simple? Is it fast even? Around lunchtime, I only get 30 minutes, let's say, for lunch. Are they getting it prepared quickly for me to actually get it, pick it up, or have it dropped off so I could actually enjoy it and not have to chow down? So defection is another area. So defection defense, digital, data, and of course, in-restaurant experience as well, because we all, especially in the restaurant industry, if you're not brand new, have brick and mortar and franchisees that we need to support. So, learning and understanding that as you start looking at restaurants, and it's no new news that as new restaurants are getting built, you're starting to see mobile pickup. You're starting to see a separate, pickup area sometimes in a restaurant. So, we're looking at all those things across the board of, what makes the most sense. And the customer really is driving that demand. And I would say a lot of it is post-COVID, but I would argue even before COVID, we were seeing the hints of it. with digital, picking up voice ordering, in-car ordering came out probably 2 years before COVID. A lot of people order from their cars. Don't do it, especially on your phone. But they have it in the dashboard where it has Safe Drive, and you can actually order it and pick it up on your way home, and it actually will navigate you to the store. I mean, it's pretty cool stuff. But we focus on those things: experiential, digital. Those are things where I think we're focused, and I would say most of the industry is focused.
Well, it's huge. I mean, it's hard to stay focused on it, though, I guess I would say, because customer experience today, as you're talking about, it's changed exponentially from pre-COVID days. And in order to keep up with the customer expectations and honestly stay a little bit in front, like if you're going to really truly surprise and delight, how do you stay in front of those expectations? It's kind of uncharted waters, I feel like, right now. And we were in a meeting recently where you said something that actually sparked a little bit of a contentious debate, let's just say, or differing of opinions, which was, we need to train the customer today. We need to retrain the customer. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm not putting you on the spot too much. And
it's good.
It became really an interesting conversation because some people were like, no, we're not training them. They're telling us what they want. Which one is it?
Well, I think the problem is, the reason I made the comment is that, I think we're looking at 50% of the equation. I think anytime you have an interaction with a customer, it is a short-term relationship that you have to build. And that customer has to have the trust in you that they're going to come back. So the reality is that because of COVID, because of restrictions, because of new mobile apps, some folks never even had mobile apps before. Now they're having to go into mobile apps, into websites. And I say that, and folks might be surprised to hear that, but it's the truth. Or if they did have a mobile app, it didn't necessarily do delivery, it was pickup only. So, the reality is that everyone thinks, if I inform them, they will come. It's not like that, right? Because some folks, it's, okay, I inform them, but now you have an arduous experience for someone to get through that you need to train them on how to do it, right? And what I mean by that is, as I mentioned before, when COVID hit, you had a whole swath of customers who normally didn't do delivery, right? They enjoyed the fact that, hey, I come home, let's say it's a traditional family, and, you have little kids and both parents come home from work and the nanny goes home, or they pick them up from daycare. They come home and they say, hey, you know what? Let's treat the kids and let's take them out. So they go out, and all of a sudden that completely shifted. It shifted to a model where, okay, I'm going to be working from home. I either order Instacart, run this through. I don't have what I need. Kids are starving. I'm going to order something, right? Well, during that time, people had roughly about 3 months to stand up a mobile app or improve their website in 30 days, basically. Right. So it probably isn't the best experience. Well, your most loyal customers who now have to go online, right? Who never ordered online before, have to understand that I need to be extremely diligent in my ordering. Because if I'm not diligent in my ordering, you're going to order a build, because that's what it is. When you sit down and you go, blah, blah, I know what I'm going to order, blah, blah, no onions, blah, blah, no tomatoes, blah, right? When you're looking at it and you're ordering it, in your brain, you think you've said all these things. You haven't, right? You need to say no onions, no tomatoes, right? You need to start activating your order the way that you want it. Because what ends up happening is then the customer places the order, it shows up, and the order is wrong. Well, it's not that the order is wrong. It's the order didn't come as the customer expected it to, because they didn't understand there was more steps in the ordering process that didn't exist before. And this was the whole comment I made about training the customer. It needs to be, hey, mister, I'm going into this web app. When I go in and I click on that build, why don't you pop something that says, hey, it comes with all these ingredients. Do you want all those ingredients? That's training the customer. I'm not talking about getting the customer on a conference call and sitting with them and saying, okay, we're going to place an order today. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is using the mobile app to say, did you really mean to do that? Did you really mean to place that order? Did you really mean to do this? If not, here's your out. Click on this. Here it is. Here's the list of ingredients. Yes, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Perfect. There's your order. I just trained you. I've just given you a training through the experience to now not have that order come back as a complaint, come back as a missed order, because I'm telling you that holy goodness data we're talking about, and especially in that conversation, it started around the data. Well, oh my God, we're having all these bad orders and all these bad orders. And I asked the question, okay, well, are you doing the research around why was the order bad? What was wrong with it? Oh, well, the item was missing, or, It wasn't built correctly. Okay, well, what did the customer expect to receive? Right? That question wasn't being asked. So the customer is just saying that it's wrong. Okay, they're right. It's wrong to their expectation, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't ordered right. What it means is the customer didn't realize potentially there were a few more steps they had to do to get exactly what they wanted. And I guarantee you, no customer that has children, I would even just say no customer in general, wants to place an order. They're waiting for it, greedily waiting at the door for their order to show up. They've been fiending for that burger or those fries or whatever, and it shows up and they want it to be wrong. Right? I mean, if you're in that camp, then, you got other problems besides a burger showing up, right? So, I think what we need to do is stop thinking that, this isn't a relationship with the customer. It is a relationship with the customer. We're happy to have every customer that comes to us. We're more than happy to service them. We're glad that they came to us, but I want to make sure that there's the expectation of, hey, we're going to service you, but you have to work with us too. You can't place a wrong order and then, expect it magically somehow when it gets there to be correct. And we'll correct whatever order we need to. But at the same time, this is the training I was talking about back to the original. And it did cause quite a bit. People were like, oh my God, and they were falling off their chairs like they couldn't believe it, right? Yeah. But I was like, guys, this is now a dance. Before it was a show, right? You bought your ticket, you sat down, and the show went on. COVID happened and it became a dance. And the dance was, you got to tell me what you want so I can get you what you want. That's the difference that I think happened with COVID and really increased digital sales. And I don't think a lot of folks were ready for that dance to happen. So,
yeah. And so where are you in the process at Fat Brands of scripting that train the customer process and ensuring that orders are accurate?
Yeah, we're working on it. I mean, that's just like everyone else, there's no perfect solution to this equation. And I think, folks realize that technology is great and automation and AI is great. But when you have humans involved, there's going to be errors, right? And you just need to work together with the customer and ensure they get what they need and they want, fulfill their expectations, and you're going to be golden. But you're always going to have that situation where, hey, an order got mixed up. It might have been ordered wrong. Expectation is off. But I'd rather know that has happened so I could say, okay, well, let's take a look at it. I have 10 steps in my order journey, including payment and clicking on the app or on the web. So now I have 8 steps. Pop what they want, this. Where in that process is this happening? Where do I need the pop? Hey, review your order. It comes with bacon and blah, 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 and all this mayonnaise and whatever. Is that really what you wanted? Please verify. When they click, yes, that's exactly what I wanted. You've placed another verification that that's what they wanted. And that's going to help in the long run. Now, I went back and said that a lot of people are ordering from the car or ordering, when they're really busy and they're probably not checking everything, that they're just hitting next, right? But, the idea is that's kind of the training I was talking about in that conversation. Now, I'm not saying all customers, because we do know that a lot of customers do it very easily, seamlessly, and the orders go out great. This is for the smaller number that, us as restaurateurs tend to focus on, which is the complaints, right? The good news is we have a lot of non-complaining orders that go out, or non-complaint orders or orders that were created wrong, that the customer is happy, delighted, and returning. And, we're more than happy to see them come back every time.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that makes total sense. And there's different categories of customers like you're talking about. There's some that, obviously the Gen Zs and some of the millennials, they're more astute at performing the ordering functions. And it's not always a generational divide. But speaking of the customer experience, I know something else that you're really passionate about is the marketing side of things and getting that data so that you can personalize the experience, whether you're ordering in the car, on premise, off premise, whatever it happens to be. What are some ways that operators can think about collecting the marketing data and getting faster out of the chute in terms of personalizing the experience without having to go out and build all new tech stacks and things like that? Have you come up with some hacks for marketing and personalization?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always tell folks when it comes to the holy goodness of data, some of the things you have to look for is idiosyncrasies in the data, which is around, there's still a lot of email that happens, in these days. But the interesting thing is that email is great when someone comes into the restaurant, but if they're ordering through their mobile app, chances of them looking at the email are pretty close to zero, or not deleting it altogether, right? Because I guarantee you, knowing folks that at least the circles, even my children, right? They order from numerous places, right? They'll go to numerous places, and sometimes we're in an area where they don't have, let's say, the restaurants that we have in our suite that they order from. And if every one of them is emailing them, they're just delete, delete, delete. So the idea is that you have to communicate on the plane that the customer communicates. If they're a web communicator, if they're a mobile app communicator, then you go mobile web and mobile app, and you do SMS and MMS and these things, because that's how that customer communicates. So the age of shotgun, email blast, I think is great for a certain customer base. But I think what you're finding is, most folks, that are of consumer age, I would argue, is leaning more towards the mobile side. So, the idea is if that's how your customer communicates, then you need to be laser focused on how they want to interact with your brand. I mean, it's not that email doesn't work. I just think email, we get inundated with so many emails over the course of time, and we're more of an immediate society, whereas email takes time to scroll, whereas something pops up, you have to eliminate it on your phone. It stays there, right? Or if you have, where your banners come up and they are temporary, yes, it'll go away, but it still stays in your center, right? Your notification center, unless you get rid of it. So it's just, hey, that's how I want to communicate. I want to communicate through mobile or through web. I'm going to order through mobile web. Let's say a DoorDash, or I'm a pickup customer, or whatever it is I'm doing. I tend to want to receive information that way. And that's everything from receipt to ad to survey to whatever you get, right? Or receipt and survey combined. And it's also, the thing to think about is customers have very short attention spans, right? When it comes to receiving something. So the idea is it has to be almost instant. That here's your receipt and here's a survey. And the survey needs to be meaningful and ridiculously short. Mm-hmm. It needs to gather what you want to know. And the only time you go down a rabbit hole is if there was an issue where did it fulfill, your expectations? No. Okay. Then it's, what was wrong? Was the order wrong items, missing item, right? You then go down that list and at least be able to gather it at a high level. And then you ask, would you be willing to add some more information? And then, you ask them. But I would argue that if you want to gather the delightful stuff, it has to be, was it good? Yes. Boom. Yep. That's it. Move on. Whereas, man, sometimes you get these surveys. Hey, how was your experience? Oh, it was good. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, apparently I just opened the midterm for the survey, and I'm about to answer, who was the first president? And you're like, what? I mean, do you really need to know that when I ordered fries? Yeah. I just don't get it.
Yeah. So short and sweet for sure. We are
definitely short and sweet.
Competing for a lot of attention. So here you are, you're about 6-7 months in as CIO. What has surprised you that you didn't expect?
Well, I don't think anything really surprised me that I didn't expect. I think what surprised me that I didn't expect is, senior leadership really understanding that they needed technology to really bring up the experience of the customer. They really knew that was something that we had to look at, whether it was websites or mobile apps and the regulatory side. So, a lot of times you get into organizations, technology is something that people just kind of put up with,
Yeah.
But man, when the phone goes down or the computer doesn't work for some reason, that's a bad thing, But to have the foresight to say, hey, we need help in technology because we want to build this into something that's amazing, and we know we need the help. So I was really surprised to the level of support that we're getting, from a technology perspective and the investments that we're being able to make.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm happy to hear that.
That's good. Yeah.
Of course. What would you say are the biggest barriers facing CIOs and CTOs today?
I think, first of all, I would say that the biggest barrier facing every person on the planet is security right now. That really is the biggest problem, because as our security tools are learning, so are the hackers. So you are playing this constant dance again, another dance, just different tune, another dance that you're dancing to where just as fast as you're learning and you're rolling out new tools, the hackers are learning and rolling out new strategies, right? And, staying ahead of those folks, I think is really kind of the biggest challenge for all CIOs and CTOs, because it's not whether or not you're going to be attacked. It's when you're going to be attacked and are you ready for it, right? So that's really, I would say, the biggest challenge. The second challenge I would argue behind that is right now, the talent pool that's out there is just being gobbled up across the globe even. The issues in Ukraine is a massive technology hub for the world. It has some really great technology offshore companies. So I'm sure a lot of folks are going to, now we weren't using them, but I know a lot of my friends, that were working out there have been impacted. Now they've moved to other countries and they're still working, but the world economy is really starting to impact CTOs as well, both on the talent side, as well as the availability of vendors to deliver, such as supply chain on hardware and, and I would even argue on some of the peripheral things where, some of the screens that you're trying to order hardware for locations and stores, it's hard to get your hands on the actual screens. But some of that, it's starting to settle down, somewhat. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I would say security is number one, talent is number two. The good news is we got some talented people, which is great. But, I think those are going to be our biggest challenges now. And I would argue in the foreseeable future until things settle down.
Yeah. Would love to know what your vision is at Fat Brands there for the tech stack. I mean, let's shift a little bit into talking about the modernization effort that's going on at almost all multi-unit restaurants like yours, which is there's a lot of disjointed technologies out there. You're obviously trying to collect the data like we've talked about and being conscious of the security, all the while. And I think what we saw a lot in COVID was people going out and sort of, I think of it almost a Leaning Tower of Pisa, a lot of different things bolted on the side and around the stack. And we know that some brands are, have over 100 different tech systems that they're using. And that becomes very unwieldy, I would imagine, at a certain point. So from an enterprise technology and a system standpoint, what is your vision and your goal?
Yeah, well, funny you say that because I coined a term that, bolt-on went to glue-on, right? That's, used to have bolt-ons, but now it's glue-on or paperclip together. I mean, you're absolutely right. Foolish is the man builds his house upon the sand, right? So, I think from a technical stack perspective, I think you nailed it in the comment you made is the first thing you have to really think about is a solid foundation. It's getting the foundation right and making this foundation something that is a living organism that allows you to nurture, grow, replace pieces and not have to bring down the entire system. So it's really putting together a future-proof foundation. If you are able to do that, then all the other technologies that you come up with, be them digital, be them data related or this, then this truly become bolt-ons. And if you need to switch out a vendor, you need to switch out, either it's a non-performing vendor or as we've seen in history of technology, certain areas of technology such as POS and the marketing or CRM space just folding on itself to where, you used to have a field of POS systems that was endless. And now you're starting to see them get bought up and bought up and bought up. Oracle and NCR and these folks are buying up a lot of small players. But if you need to, and you need to bolt something else in, you need to have that ability to quickly pivot, as a brand, should something happen, should someone get bought and now all of a sudden it's no longer the roadmap that you thought you were going to be on. And it's something completely different that you no longer could work with. You could easily take it out. So, it's really having that foundation that is solid, but flexible. So that makes it future proof. And then this way also having digital assets that, you're able to get the data you require and you have some level of control over. Because the most important thing in the digital aspect is the experience, customer experience. And you have to be able to control that when you need to pivot based on business problems. So for example, if we ever shut down again, God forbid, knock on wood and, whatever you need to do to make that not happen. The idea is you need to be able to quickly pivot and flick a switch and say, we're now doing curbside. It shouldn't be, I now need to code and do all these things, be able to stand up curbside. It should just be, I'm going to take that traffic and I'm going to now move it over to a trained customer. You know what I mean? A trained customer who now knows that I could pick up curbside and it just becomes a natural migration for that customer. So it's having all those things within your toolbox to be able to shift. Now, all along, as you're doing all that shifting, you're capturing all the data behind the scenes. And it's data that you need to own, on your own platform. So that's kind of my vision, is having that future-proof platform. And I'm not speaking anything that no technologist knows, but being able to do it in companies that are Technicolor Dreamcoat type companies or very, very large companies, and especially companies that have grown up prior to the computer age, replacing some of this stuff is the millions are ridiculous numbers. It's not, we're just going to replace, let's say in the financial world, we're just going to replace our mortgaging servicing platform. No, that's probably a $300 million project, right? And it'll probably take 5 years. So the reality is that by the time you roll it out, you have an absolute platform, So It's almost like, how do we continue to limp along, on these platforms until we can get to a solid foundation? So solid foundation, having a flexible stack, flexible digital, control over your own data, as well as, personalized experiences. That's the vision, right? At the end of the day, we all preach it, but being able to do it is another thing. And we're well on our way to making that happen.
Fantastic. It's no small undertaking. That's for sure.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I had hair when I started this job like yours. So you can imagine that's 7 months.
No way.
So you budding CIOs, you have hair like that, like this here. See this hair here, like that. And then this. So, that's 7 months.
Oh, gosh. Wow. I love the way you're talking
boy.
about the flexible foundation and having that architecture. And I think there's the age old discussion of like best of breed, which has came up a lot with Justin Keenan when we talked a couple weeks ago, and came up also with Don Gillis when we talked a few weeks ago. The best of breed versus the all-in-one, right? And are you also of the belief that this all-in-one is just, it's done? It's never going to be a working solution.
Yeah, the all-in-one is very, very difficult and complicated, because whenever you have humans, again, on the consumer side, you can't adapt that fast when it's all-in-one, unfortunately. So you have to be able to plug and play and move and adapt. And also the problem is that cost becomes an issue, because when you build this behemoth, the cost to maintain it becomes absolutely ridiculous. So, the idea of having fast, nimble platforms that don't take, an entire village to run, is something that you definitely, have to look at. So I agree. Best in breed is probably, the way to go as opposed to all in one. But question is, do you go for best in breed when you're looking at a purebred, or are you looking at a mixed? That's the question. So what I mean by that is that, are you going to go down a path of only rolling out certain types of technologies, let's say, whether it be a certain language or a certain platform that only runs, let's say, in AWS versus, Azure, I don't know. Or do you have a mix? Do you go to a multi-cloud, right? Don't know. So I even think it's all in one, best in breed. And then I think what it is it's, what? We're going to mutt this thing, right? Because at the end of the day, if I mutt this thing, it gives me the flexibility to have a multi-cloud environment, or it gives me the idea to have the ability to attract talent, right? In certain areas where if everyone goes best in breed, and the best in breed is what everyone's trying to hire for, how do you hire people? So, I think we have to think about this a little bit broader than just the best in breed. I think you need to have right fit outside of best of breed. I think the best, yes, but the best for you as opposed to the best in the industry, because that might not work for you, right? Best in the industry might not be the path that you're on, so that's why I kind of think of it's more of the breed as a mutt, but you go for the best mutt you can get.
Yes. I have a mutt. I have a shepherd beagle.
Yeah, a shepherd beagle. See, so you're multi-cloud. You're a multi-cloud customer already.
Yeah. That works fine.
That's right. And I'm sorry, I'm so serious. Those talks are supposed to be very serious. So
yeah.
I'm just not.
It's good.
By nature, I just can't help myself.
No, you're incredibly personable. I mean, like I said, I've had the pleasure of meeting you several times, and you said something at a conference to me where we were walking down the hallway, and it really struck me because you bring your partner, your fiance, to all of your conference events, mostly your travel, and you said, years ago when we went on these boondoggles, it was always we'd bring our partners with us, and today we don't. And why is that? And we had a really interesting conversation around that. And I super digress, but no, I think it's very common nowadays. Like work and personal is not separate. Like it's just not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes back to this thing where we always talk about, geez, when someone gets sick or, and I'm more than happy to relate my ills. I had COVID, so I had the real COVID. I had the real deal. I had ICU level renal failure, respiratory failure, COVID, right? And I also am a cancer survivor. And everyone talks about having a support network. But why should you only have it when you're sick? I just don't get it, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be successful, you need to have a deep, rich support network professionally and personally. And I really feel that, when you spend so much time away from your significant other, one day you come home and it's a different person, right? It's no longer the person you met and you fell in love with, or, not to get on welcome to the love connection. But you kind of understand, the idea. But you understand the idea of you're in these high pressure jobs. There's a lot going on. You're doing a lot of travel, and everyone, thankfully, my fiance is able to be remote. So she just works from the hotel. She doesn't interfere. I go to the dinners. I do whatever. When I come back, we'll sit down. We'll have a drink together at the bar before we go to bed and just watch TV. And the next day we just do it all over again, because it's those moments that we have these conversations of, how was your day? Right?
Mm-hmm.
What was your day like? And you could go, and just lean into somebody and fall apart if the day sucked. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a true firm believer that don't give up I would say, you can't give up your soul to achieve a dream. That's the reality. And I think that is what we've done to ourselves here in America sometimes, and I just came back from Greece and I came back from Dubai, and it's very interesting. And last year we went to Egypt, the year before we went to Central Europe. And when you see the difference in the work-life balance, it's just insane. We really need to do a better job of our own personal health, the health of our teams, the health of even our spouses and partners and fiancés and significant others. It's tough. It's a tough job. You're on 24/7 in technology. So, remember that, folks, if you're listening to this, it's a tough job in technology, but at the same time, love is even tougher sometimes. So, and harder to find these days.
Yeah.
Keep it close.
Yeah. Give yourself breaks. I have to,
that's right.
I'm not type A you described, and I have to really force myself to take breaks. And I think COVID gave us all a big break. I mean, not for you, sorry, about, your health issues, but, it gave us, a lot of us, a big pause and step back and space and a lot of reevaluation and reflection. And I'm trying to carry that into my daily life as well. I had a woman on by the name of Milena Rigos, and she started this movement called Unhustle, which is catching on like wildfire. There's now communities around the globe. Unhustle. What does that mean? Unhustle. And she talks about integrating life, work, play, design. And so it's not like work balance anymore. It's like, how are you doing life and work and designing play into your schedule? And that was like a kind of a mind blow for me, because I was always like, work, life, play when I can, but not every day. And
you become
modeling
a fractional person. You become a fractional person. And the reason you do that is because when you play, you play. When you work, you work. When you rest, you rest. But you do that in silos. What you don't do is you're not restful at work. You're stressed. Why? Why be stressed at work? If you're doing your job and you're doing a great job and you're doing all the things you need to do, and there's nothing that says that you can't have fun, right? That you can't enjoy the job. And don't be foolish and get yourself, hi HR, don't do that. But what you want to do is that you should have fun, and you should make work fun. It's all of our responsibility to make work fun. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, that I just wrote a hand note to someone, not that they could read it because it's like Sanskrit when I write, but here you go. The note kind of was like, like the Charlie Brown, but they saw my signature. Hey, that's great. Right.
Yeah.
But at least they understood that, hey, this person actually appreciated what I did. And folks would come in and say, hey, I just really appreciate that you saw me and you saw that I was doing something, that I did something. And I said, I see you all the time. But the question is, do you? I see you. Do you see what you're doing? You always worry. You're always stressed. You're always worried about what you're going to do. And I think us as technology folks and me as a CIO, it's my job to take my crew and say, hey, listen, okay, guys, pause for a minute, right? You need to have this work balance. You need to have this life-work balance. And we need to figure that out. We really do. And, things are going to come and they're going to cause us to have to work longer hours and more time. But at the same time, that should also mean that you should be able to spend time with your family, your significant others. You should be able to leave and go on vacation and not have to worry about your phone ringing. We don't do that today. We all have our phones with us. We're answering emails on our vacation. It's something. As a CIO, that's something I'm really trying to work on with our crew and saying, guys, when you go out, I call it the page of seconds. Everyone should have on this page a second in command, right? So this way, when you go out, that person should know everything that's happening in your side of the organization. So when you leave, I know who to call and they know exactly what's going on. And that should also when you think about it and you start doing succession planning, that should be the person who would take your role if you got promoted or you decided to leave. That should be the person who could easily step into the role and do the job, but they might not be ready from other reasons. Maybe they're just not, personally ready. Maybe they need, they got sharp edges, hard elbows, some of those things. They need some of the more personal soft skills, or maybe they need hard skills, or maybe they just need senior leadership training in general. Get them those skills. Start crafting, start training, start teaching, start mentoring. I think that's what we need to do at our levels.
Yeah. Well, tell me some of the ways you make work fun besides, writing the notes and things like that. What do you do with your team to keep it light and model that, taking that pause and making work fun? I think that's hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is hard. It's not the easiest thing because, everyone's trying to say we should have 30-minute meetings. When all of a sudden, how do you make things fun? When everyone's going, okay, number two, you sound like auctioneers, But I think the way that I work on making things fun, especially, and we're actually rolling this out right now, is, putting together a recognition plan that's more than just, hey, great job. It's more around, long ago when I was in my financial services years, we used to give away movie tickets. We used to have a quarterly award that somebody won, and people would fight for that award. They work really hard to get that, that crystal thing on their desk, right? So they could be the CIO of the CIO winner for the quarter, right? But it's also doing recognition that is meaningful for folks. And that's recognition across the organization, where Billy wants to, recognize Jane or whatever in a meaningful way, and looking at it and saying, hey, I want to give a shout out to this person. And if that person gets a meaningful shout out, and we vet them, of course, or else everyone's going to be giving shout outs. And if you give out a gift card or whatever, now all of a sudden you're giving away, $100,000 in gift card. But the idea is to really have a meaningful shout out to say, hey, this person worked 15 hours. They didn't have to do it, but I was in a bind. I was stuck. And this person went, up and beyond, and we'll give them, we're looking to give that person a gift card or a thank you note, or maybe, here's a coupon for dinner for two in a movie, whatever it is, just to kind of give back a little bit, for that person for taking the time in a meaningful way, not just the pat on the back and just the note. Right now, of course, I'm working on that, like all things, because it also has to be fair. And that becomes kind of the hardest part of doing these programs. It just has to be fair across the board. And that becomes somewhat of a challenge.
Right. Well, good for you for working on it and at least getting started. And I had the pleasure of being at your franchisee conference, which I just thought did a fabulous job of highlighting the people in your organization and top franchisees. And it was just a very lovely event. And I don't say that about many big conferences I go to. They tend to be kind of stressful, So I can tell from an organizational standpoint that your entire company is prioritizing people and recognition, and that makes a difference. It makes a difference to everyone who sees it, and it reminds us that people are first.
Yeah, absolutely. People are first. Absolutely. And when you're a CIO, you learn that right away when you walk into a room full of computers and there's no people. Right? First thing you see is a bunch of computers.
Yeah.
No work's getting done, right? No one's working on them. And sometimes you look at it and you go, wow, it's great that we have these computers and these technologies, but without folks in those seats, it's meaningless, right? So I think as a CIO, you see that even more so than most folks, because we work in this very static, artificial world that someone has to control, right? Someone has to pick it up and actually control it, that it's very unique, right? It's very unique. It's much more personable than people think. They think it's just bits and bytes, but it's not. It's, you take it to heart. When technology goes wrong and doesn't serve people correctly, you really take it to heart. You start thinking, how could we have done that better? What could we have done wrong? Why did these people leave or quit? Or why can't we attract these people? What is it that we're doing that we could be doing better? So I would recommend that anyone who gets into this level role, do some significant reflecting on a daily basis of what went good that day and what went bad. And, I would argue that when I hit my 7th month, I told myself that that's the month I would start journaling and start every day just writing down and saying, hey, here's what went well and here's what didn't, because my ability to make decisions gets shorter and shorter the higher I got in a company. So now all of a sudden, the power that you have is like a triangle like this, and your influence is up here, but the time you have to do it is this way, and it's this much time, right? You have this little sliver and this much influence. Now all of a sudden, I'm making decisions with very little information, right? So I have to rely on a lot of folks. So it's making sure that I nurture folks, make them understand what I want to see, and getting better and better at that, because man, you do sometimes have some, mulligan, on that one. Yeah. Mulligan kicked the ball out of the weeds a little bit, whoops.
Yeah.
When I'm going to see that one,
Yeah.
But, you tend to do that. But, luckily I've been thankfully I've been, doing all right.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. I'm sure you're doing a little bit better than all right. Let me ask you as we start to wrap here, we'll do just a couple quick rounds of questions, little
Sure.
quick round of fire. What do you think are the biggest blind spots in the industry today that we're missing?
Well, I think I said it earlier that security is definitely an area that, we need to get much better at executing. I think the other side is, personalization can go too far. I think that's another blind spot to where we make technology so complicated because we're trying to please everybody. I think what we need to do is we need to start understanding that there probably is a diminishing return when it comes to technology from a value perspective. And that's key. Value. It's not just cost, it's value. What's the value it brings to the organization? It's not just, oh, this is going to be $1 million. Well, at the end of the day, if it's $1 million and the value it brings, allows you to attract more customers or attract better employees or do this, that, and this, then, there's significant value there. So I would say in the industry, it's around value, attraction, stemming defection. Again, as I mentioned, the playing field has been leveled. Playing field is getting leveled across the board. And what I mean by that is the loyalty that you still have a lot of loyal customers. But the ones that aren't as loyal, that are on the fringe, defect very quickly. And for you to be able to ground them into your base, you have to truly surprise, delight, do it in a manner that is consistent. And that is sometimes the challenge, is consistency of your offering, consistency of the experience, and consistency of the product. Because any of those are off, they defect because they're like, hey, I could get a burger down there, or I could get hot wings down there. I don't have to come here, and you don't want that. You want them to come to you every single time. So I think that's what we're missing, is getting that linear. It's not just technology. There's things on both sides of technology, attracting them, keeping them. In the middle is technology.
Yeah. The hottest trend in restaurant technology today is?
Oh, metaverse. That's probably the hottest trend right now, is the metaverse. Folks are looking for metaverse gameplay, ability to order within games, metaverse, Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin and you have crypto is kind of taking a beating right now, but folks are still really interested in being able to use different methods and wallets and things. So I think really, allowing a customer to be who they are is becoming the most important thing out there. And that includes how they pay and even how they order. I don't want to take off my VR machine to order. I want to be able to walk into something, in a space suit with a purple mohawk, and I want to order my burger and fries, right? And then when I walk up to a kiosk, same way that you control all your guns and ammo and sift through and get that burger, fries, and that drink, and it shows up at your place, So, I think that's what you see coming with metaverse and in-game ordering and things of that nature, is something that we're just not going to get away from. And again, it's not necessarily for our generation. That's for millennials and folks coming up into the consumerism now. So I'd say that's the big one. Cyber and meta. That's where.
Yeah, metaverse. Okay. What's your moonshot?
Oh gosh, crypto and metaverse for everybody is having the foundation to be able to do it, right? I mean, that's really the key. It's not. It sounds really easy and simple, but it's not. And it's also on an environment that, albeit, is quite secure, because blockchain is one of the most secure things on the planet when it comes to being able to corrupt it. But the reality is it's still not the easiest thing. And adoption of it, because most folks that are making the decisions right now in most families are us, right? And folks just behind us in the generation, whereas a lot of folks using this are the younger ones. So that's what I think the moonshot is.
Last question. What advice do you have for other CIOs and CTOs in the restaurant industry?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's advice everyone probably gives, but it's listen, right? You almost have to have your ear to the ground, your ear to the door, your ear to the wall, your ear on the phone. You really have to listen to the heartbeat of your stack. And the heartbeat of your stack is coming out in the voices of customers and the voices of your company and the voices of your employees and the voices of your vendors and the voices of hackers, right? Those are all heartbeats that are going on, right? And the way you turn it into one heartbeat is a modernized stack that is flexible, that allows you to react, that allows you to not just actually react is not the word, is proactive, really allows you to anticipate not only where the customer is going, where the hacker is going, but where can we take this now to make this just the best place to work in the universe for technology folks? That's what you really need to be looking at. And like I said before, don't give up on love, right? You can't do that. You can't give up your soul to chase the dream, right? You need to keep the people close to you very close. As I mentioned before, I'm lucky to have a great fiance that supports me and comes with me and, really is, and you met her, she's great person. And, that's helpful. Keep those people really close. They come, they really help you through some of the harder times.
Wow. That's such a lovely way to end. Listen and love. Listen and love.
Yeah.
And
T-shirts will be available.
Hopefully we'll get a lot of people to listen in here. I really appreciate all your time today, Michael, and sharing your insights and just where you are over there at Fat Brands on the other coast, as I say, signing in from, I assume you're in LA today. I'm in
LA today. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
well, it's a pleasure, Jen, as always. So I appreciate it. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being such a great restaurant trailblazer and reinventing restaurants for the best. And you're lifting us all up. So thank you so much for everything. And we'll see you around. Thanks. See you later. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Restaurants Reinvented. This show is brought to you by Q, a restaurant tech company paving a brighter future for operators with the industry's first unified commerce platform. If you enjoyed what you learned in this episode, make sure to follow Restaurants Reinvented in your favorite podcast app, or visit qbeyond.com/podcast to get immediate access to all of the latest episodes.